All right, welcome grade 9 students to this explainer. Today, we're diving into General English 9, Unit 1, Lesson 5, which is all about using word roots and context clues to unlock meaning. Look, if you've ever found yourself staring at a huge, unfamiliar academic word and just felt completely stuck, well, today is for you. We're going to unlock some truly powerful tools to fix that.
Now, this explainer is specifically designed for you as students at St. Paul American School Clark. You guys are tackling a rigorous American curriculum, and it's built to develop your critical thinking, leadership, and a global perspective to basically prep you for top universities worldwide. But to thrive in that kind of environment, you absolutely need independent reading strategies. You can't always rely on a dictionary, especially during a high-stakes exam, right? You need to become language detectives, and that is exactly what we're training for today.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, our explainer objective. Second, exploring word roots. Third, context clues in action. Fourth, common vocabulary misconceptions. Fifth, a formative skill check. And finally, number 6, a concept recap.
Section 1. Explainer Objective. Mastering Complex Texts.
Moving right along to Section 2, Exploring Word Roots, the DNA of Language.
So our main goal today is figuring out how to independently decipher unknown words without automatically reaching for a dictionary. And we're going to start with our very first tool, roots. I want you to think of roots as literally the DNA of the English language. A root word holds the absolute most basic meaning of a word. A ton of English words are actually built from ancient Greek or Latin roots, and they serve as the foundation for a whole family of related words. Now, most of the time, these roots aren't standalone English words. They're basically building blocks. They need a prefix or a suffix attached to them to create a full, meaningful word. But here's the cool part. Learning just a handful of these ancient building blocks can literally help you unlock dozens, if not hundreds, of modern English words.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how obvious the connections become when you visually break the words apart. Take the Latin root aud, which means to hear. Once you know that, words like audio and audition make perfect sense, right? They all have to do with hearing or listening. Or take the Greek root scope, meaning viewing instrument. If you happen to know that another Greek root, tele, means far off, well, you instantly understand that a telescope is an instrument for viewing things that are far off. It's so logical. And dict, meaning to say, gives us words like dictation and dictator. Honestly, knowing these is like having the cheat codes to the English language.
Which brings us to Section 3, Context Clues in Action, examining the surrounding evidence. But you know, what happens when you encounter a word that doesn't have a familiar root? You're not just out of luck. That is exactly where you look at context clues. These are sources of information outside of the unknown words that readers can use to predict their identities and meanings. In other words, when the word itself is a total mystery, the words right next to it, or in the sentence right before or after it, will usually give away its meaning. Think about it. Authors want you to understand their writing, so they subtly leave these little hints scattered throughout the text.
There are basically 6 common types of context clues you should always be on the lookout for. We actually just talked about the first one, looking at the root word and affix. But beyond that, you can also look for contrast, logic, a direct definition provided right there in the text, an example or illustration, or even just the grammar of the sentence itself. Recognizing which of these 6 tools the author is using is absolutely key to deciphering the text.
And this brilliantly illustrates what strong readers actually do. They don't just passively read, they actively ask questions. It's a deliberate internal monologue. First, they ask themselves, okay, what are the surrounding words? Second, how do these surrounding words offer me clues based on those 6 types we just discussed? And finally, what does this unknown word likely mean in terms of this specific context? It is a deliberate step-by-step strategy that you can use every single time.
Okay, let's step into the role of a detective and actually model this with a worked example. Imagine you're reading along and you come across this sentence. People who study birds are experts in ornithology. Now, if you don't know what ornithology is, don't panic. Just apply the strategy. Step 1, what are the surrounding words? People who study birds. Step 2, how do they offer a clue? Well, this is a direct definition clue. The author is literally telling us what it is. Therefore, in context, ornithology must mean the study of birds. Boom, you just decoded it without even touching a dictionary.
Let's look at another one. Unlike mammals, birds incubate their eggs outside their bodies. The unknown word here is incubate. So what are the surrounding words? We see the word unlike, Now, that is a massive signal. That is a contrast clue. It tells us that what birds do with their eggs outside their bodies is a totally different process than what mammals do inside their bodies. The logic of the surrounding context helps us realize that incubate is the action of keeping eggs warm so they can hatch.
All right, Section 4, Common Vocabulary Misconceptions, or What Not to Do.
Before we test your skills, we need to address a really common pitfall. For the longest time, people honestly thought the best way to learn vocabulary was just staring at a dictionary. But memorizing long, disconnected lists of words, it just isn't effective. It doesn't stick in your brain. What is actually highly effective, and what all the educational research supports, is exactly what we're doing today. Using context clues and analyzing meaningful word parts, which by the way is known as morphology. Doing this connects words to meaning in a way that actually lasts.
Let's move to Section 5 and see how this builds. Formative skill check. Test your detective skills. All right, it is time to test your skills as a language detective. Here is your challenge. Read this sentence. Frugivorous birds prefer eating fruit to any other kind of food. Take a couple of seconds. Based on the context clues right there in the sentence, what do you think the word frugivorous actually means? Okay, got a guess? If you notice the phrase, prefer eating fruit, you hit the nail on the head. You correctly identified a definition clue. Frugivorous simply means fruit eating. Really great job applying the strategy there.
And finally, Section 6, Concept Recap, your reading toolkit.
We've covered some fantastic ground today, Grade 9. Let's do a quick review of the toolkit you've just built. First, remember that Greek and Latin roots serve as the foundation. They hold the absolute most basic meaning of a word. Second, when roots just aren't enough, context clues provide the outside information you need to predict those meanings. Third, always apply your self-questioning strategy to hunt down contrast, logic, and definition clues in the sentence. And lastly, please leave behind the ineffective strategy of memorizing disconnected word lists. Combining roots and context is the ultimate, evidence-based strategy for handling your rigorous coursework.
The next time you open up a textbook, a research article, or a novel for your classes at St. Paul American School Clark, you are definitely going to encounter words you've never seen before. It's just a fact. But now you don't have to skip them or stress out. You have the actual tools to break them down and figure them out completely on your own. So I want to leave you with this question. What word will you unlock next in your reading? Keep analyzing, keep asking those questions, and keep learning. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.